We have a program to make investments if there's a systemic issue. If there's an impending failure, we can step in. But this program, which we designed under our authority, this program was designed for healthy banks, and what we did is we set out criteria, but the first criteria was that banks needed to apply to their regulator, and the applications needed to come from the regulator with a recommendation. We don't have regulatory capabilities at Treasury, but we have outstanding federal regulators.
Mr. Secretary, let me, because I don't want to really bog. I know you're answering my question, but here's the problem. If the OCC tells the CEO not to file an application, you never get to that point. And let me just say one other thing. I mean, I get the fact that there can be other factors, but the fact of the matter is the regulator told National City Bank to raise $3.5 billion of private capital. They raised $7 billion. And they are one of the best capitalized banks in the country, and you guys wouldn't even take an application.
Let me then make two other points here, because you're dealing with consolidations. And I've heard a lot about using capital from the TARP for mergers. And again, and I'm just not going to deal with this. I'll make the general point that if there's a bank that is in distress, and it is acquired by a well-capitalized bank, there is more capital in the system, more available for lending, better for communities, better for everyone. No doubt about that in my mind. And so when we get, and the applications which come to Treasury, when it will come to Treasury, we have not received an application for capital from either of the banks you've mentioned. When it comes to Treasury, we'll look at it and act on it. But again, I just can't emphasize enough that this program, to me, it was very, very important on this program that this is general. I'm not speaking that it not be used to prop up failing banks or banks that might fail, that this be used for healthy banks, and that and I look to the regulators. And a matter of fact, we designed a process with the regulators. They would look at the applications as they would come in. We didn't, and that there's even a peer review board with the regulators, and they submit them to us, and we make a decision.
Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. The analyst that I referred to from Citicorp indicates that TARP changed the landscape because National City Bank was able to survive, but because it was not on the list, it was leaving itself open to possible unfavorable outcome, to market perception that it was not a survivor. And my question was, I appreciate your general answer, will you personally look at the National City Bank situation and discuss it with Mr. Dugan?
Well, I would tell you I have great confidence in John Dugan, and I'm very happy to discuss it with him. I have regular conversations with him. I have great confidence in his judgment, and I believe, based upon generally what I know, that he made the right decision. But I am perfectly happy to talk about it with him some more.
Thank you.
The gentleman from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm not going down the same path, but I would just express to the Secretary that there is a strong feeling out in the public that a number of the decisions that have been made have had the effect of not only picking winners and losing, but influencing who is a winner and is a loser. And that's something that we have to deal with every day. I'm dealing with it in my own community, not in the sequential fashion that Mr. LaTourette is, but there are a number of people in my community who believe that had a different set of decisions been made regarding Wachovia, would still be a viable institution today. But that's, I'm going to leave that alone. It's a perception problem that unless we provided the kind of information and assurance that that people are looking at it and looking at it with integrity, we can't reassure the public about. That's not a question, Mr. Paulson.
I just would just say with that, this is...
That's not a question, Mr. Paulson. Because I don't even know how to frame a question that will get to, but I think you all need to deal with the reality that the perception is out there, and that we are having to defend these decisions. So I hope you will make the decisions. $24 billion is the figure that I've heard used to do the FDIC foreclosure prevention program. How is that figure calculated? What does that figure consist of, Ms. Baer?
That is based on a no greater than 50% loss share for loans that are modified to a specific affordability metric and then end up redefaulting later on. We're assuming a 33%, which we think is a fairly conservative assumption, redefault rate. And then the government would take 50% of the loss between the net present value of the modified mortgage versus whatever the recoveries were at resolution. So if the mortgage ended up going into foreclosure, or there was a short sale, or it might be that it would be remodified or refinanced.
Okay, who would get, I mean, where is that money?
That money would go to the mortgage owner.
Is it an expenditure? Does it go to somebody? Or, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is Mr. Paulson, Secretary Paulson, apparently doesn't think that's part of stabilizing the financial system. As he reads the language, and I have the bill right here in front of me, that is what it says, stabilizing the financial system. How does that stabilize the financial system if we put up $24 billion?
It provides financial incentives to get loans modified that are not being modified now, that are going into unnecessary foreclosures. That's the bottom line.
Okay. And how is that less important, Secretary Paulson, than basically telling some banks you will take an equity investment, some of whom really didn't even have any interest in doing that, and certainly didn't have the need for it according to their own public statements. You've got $24 billion, as I see this list here, almost coming into banks in North Carolina, at least some of whom said, I don't need this money. How is that more important than what we've described here about helping stop the cascade of foreclosures?
I think I've been pretty clear. I believe it's important to stop the cascade of foreclosures, and I think the key...
Well, let me rephrase the question then. How does that stabilize the financial system more than stopping the cascading of foreclosures under a program that is projected to cost $24 billion?
Well, I would say that these are, you're dealing with apples and oranges here, and the apple is a very, very big apple, because the step that was taken to stabilize
well, the question I'm asking is the apple more important than the orange, or is the orange more important than the apple?
I'm saying that the forest through the trees here was the important step was the step that was taken to stabilize the banking system, and the combined step taken by...
And how does putting money in a bank that didn't ask for it help to stabilize the banking system?
Well, okay, to answer that question, there are no banks when the system is under pressure, unless they're ready to fail, that are going to raise their hand and say, please, I need capital. Give me some capital. What happens when an economy turns down and when there's a crisis, they pull in their horns, they say, I don't need help, they don't deal with other banks, they don't lend, and